So it's just as easy to tie the pronouns to a choice than it is to tie to a voice. Like, I feel like I feel like you could have just like I feel like you could have just said you're non-binary or something. You know what I mean? Like I find it hard to believe that it's that difficult of a programming fix or something. But I don't know. Maybe it is. Okay, maybe it is. But ultimately, I still think it's like well intentioned. Ultimately, but still misses the mark. You know what I mean? But it's still well intentioned. I think that it's difficult. It's probably because of the voice acting. The voices were given gendered scripts that had pronouns in it, and they caught it too late. Yeah, maybe. If they didn't record the options while doing other VA, it wouldn't be an easy fix. Oh, true. Maybe. Anyway, we're gonna move on to the Cyberpunk stuff, but before we continue, it is top of the hour, which means it's time for a 60-second ad break. If you would like to have an ad-free broadcasting experience, all you need to do is subscribe. You can subscribe with a $5 subscription, or you can subscribe for free by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account with a Twitch Prime. You get one free subscription a month. It's like taking money from Jeff Bezos. Now, if you don't personally have one, you can use your mommy's or your daddy's Amazon Prime to connect it to your Twitch Prime. That accommodating. Anyway, here's the ad. Dude, I have a serious question for everybody that has been on this CD Projekt Red is transphobic tip. Why would they do all of the other accommodations? Like, why would they do that? Can someone please tell me why they would do all this other shit if it wasn't to like they didn't have to do that. None of the games have this level of fucking accommodation. It's good that they would, right? And it's great. I'm glad that games are doing it. But like, most games don't fucking do any of this shit. So what are you talking about? Like, for a better punchline? Yeah, okay, bro. I don't think they're necessarily transphobic, but the lack of follow through is a bit insensitive of them. I mean, I think that it's bait for PR. Come on, dude. If it's bait for PR, they don't even need to do any of it. They literally don't need to do any of it. They could just say that they're transphobic. There you go. Like, bait for PR. If they're gonna make money off of the transphobia and the back and forth, they literally don't need to like add in this level of customization. They could just be like, we're transphobic. I don't understand. Like, oh, anyway. I feel like a trans person could make a lot of money consulting on these AAA games. It's amazing that they went this far since they're Polish. The promo poster seemed exploitative. Dude, it's a future dystopia, dude. It's a future dystopia where, yes, they're fetishizing trans people. It's a future dystopia where marketing is being criticized. The one person that said, like, there's only two genders or something on their team was fucking fired. They dropped them. Being a non-binary means you're robbing yourself of a game feature. No dick slider. Who would want that? Wait, what? I don't know if that's true. A non-binary fix can be having NPCs who don't know your character oscillate between male and female pronouns. It happens all the time to they, thems. They wouldn't require much VO recasting. The genitals isn't really much accommodation if they're not going to let someone's identity be decoupled from cis-normative phenotypes. Okay. My friends. Once again, we are failing to understand what, like, the average fucking cishet person's point of view is on this shit. Where, like, this seems more like a group of individuals who were trying to be more accommodating and trying to be more woke, if you will, and fucking failing on an area that is otherwise solvable and fixable. It seems more like an oversight issue in a Polish company rather than like deliberate transphobia. Especially if it's supposed to be fucking transphobic, then they would have just been transphobic. Like, people that say this is a PR stunt fail to recognize that it's very easy to just be transphobic as a PR stunt. The trans people in here know this as well. Most people do this shit all the time to advance their own personal brands, to advance their own personal representation. They say, you know, fuck trans people. I'm Ben Shabibo. Please give me money. And it's that simple. Because unfortunately, given how fucking transphobic most people are, it's a normal conversation that people have, even in intellectual circles. So because of that, it feels like this is not even an additional thing that they needed to do. It seems like an oversight issue where paired up with the fucking insane crunch that they were subjected to, they were like, we can't fucking, we can't like change the VA. Like, we can't add additional voice lines. It would push it back so much further, because in the beginning phases, they didn't think about it. Due to how many bugs there are, the game doesn't even seem to be fully done, and I'm sure they will fix it. Everyone needs to chill out and give them time in a pandemic. Okay. Pick the feminine voice, and your pronouns are she, her, and vice versa. There are no non-binary pronoun options. As a trans woman with a voice that many would not describe as feminine, this is a direct linking of gender identity to having a voice that sounds masculine or feminine feels weirdly essentializing. It is. It is essentializing. Now, the conversation then revolves around, are we, do we think that this is deliberate, or do we think that this is a lack of oversight? Because people are coming in here and they're like, oh, this is fucking transphobic, it's transphobic. Or like, people are even advancing the argument that it's a marketing stunt. I could have forgiven it if the rest of the game took strides to humanize trans identities, but boy, it sure doesn't. Ubiquitous throughout Night City are ads for a beverage called Chromencature that feature a female-coded model with a penis visible through her skin-tight clothing, making clear the Cyberpunk 2077 trans bodies are objectified and commodified. Yeah, some cis bodies are too, of course, but the crucial difference is that as V, we constantly meet, interact with, and form relationships with cis characters who have far more dimension than the surface of any sexualized image on a billboard. The same can't be said of trans characters. When you opt to play as trans V, she's not particularly well defined. The game is about what you see through her eyes, what she goes through, not by who she is as a person. What? Okay, real question that I'm actually wondering. Could it still not be transphobic to a degree? Then it's an oversight? I think it absolutely changes the way, the critical lens in which you look this through. Now, I'm privileged as fuck on this, so obviously my arguments revolve around, like, I personally want to live in a world where it's as accommodating as possible to trans people, where trans people can safely exist and people are understanding and aren't fucking transphobic. But ultimately, I'm still a cis het dude. So for me, it's like, it's not even something I would ever consider. I'm not like, this game doesn't have trans representation, I'm not going to play it. No. Of course not. Like, that would be crazy. I've never, the thought has never even entered my mind. I'm being perhaps maybe too honest, brutally honest here. But like, it's selfish, but it's certainly a point of my privilege. So my argument on this is always going to have that reality. Okay? The vast majority of trans people wouldn't see this as transphobic. They would just think this wasn't thought through. It's like I have said before on here, the loud voice on the people who shoot down any and all attempts to change that aren't perfect are driving the conversation. Look, all of this is great, but can we start asking the real questions? Like, will there be a clit slider? Okay, shut up, DJ Mothman. Criticism of capitalism through dehumanizing ads goes right over the... Yeah, like, this entire fucking point on the billboards, which I'm showing because it's a part of the game. It's not going to like not be a part of the game. But the entire fucking point of this game is about how, if I'm not mistaken, is I think Cyberpunk is what written by a pretty woke lefty black dude, right? And that the entire fucking point of the game is about how capitalism, hyper capitalist commoditization of human beings. He's not a lefty black dude. He's a libertarian. Wait, really? People call them on the issue though and warn them. Is it not deliberate if they were warned on it earlier and they didn't fix it? Well, the ad stuff, I don't even agree with. I talked about it before. I literally don't agree. Like and maybe it's because I'm privileged, but I just don't agree. Like it's not like I'm not gonna be won over on the ads are dehumanizing. Like, because yeah, of course they are. Like, there's an entire fucking band of like sex worker Marxists or something too in there as well, aren't there? He's anti-corporate and libertarian. Sounds pretty lefty. That's the whole point. Like, yeah, that part I will not agree with. I don't agree with it. And I didn't agree with it back then and I still don't agree with it. But the part of it that is like is a fix, I think is an issue of oversight, or not even oversight, but just like a lack of representation. They're not making a utopian world. Why do people expect them to make a very trans-friendly dystopia? So that's the fucking problem I have, is like this notion that in video games where like bad things are supposed to be bad or should not exist. That's something I do have an argument against. That's something I do get frustrated by. It's supposed to be art. Bad things that are supposed to be evil are going to be bad and evil in the game, and that's literally the fucking point. In my 40 plus hours in Night City, I've never met a single character of any significance who the game made clear was trans, and one of the only queer coded characters I encountered was an extremely unsavory cybernetic surgeon who does extremely unsavory things. I did spot a trans flag on a character's vehicle, though that hardly counts as a positive trans representation. Doesn't even necessarily mean the character is trans, but like, what do you... Okay, yeah, no, this is... All right, whatever. I don't want to talk about this any further. This is gonna fucking... Bad section of an otherwise good review, and I say this as a trans person. I don't want to... We should move on from this part of this review, I think, because this is not as good as you think it is, and you're not going to hear me say things that you expect me to say. As someone who is a very loud and proud trans advocate, so I'm not going to fucking read this part. I'm going to move past it, okay? And you can say that I am being, cishet privileged. Fine, probably true. And you can also say that, I'm excited about Cyberpunk, and that's why it's like clouding my judgment. And probably true as well, but... ultimately, I don't think that this is like, I think this is a little crazy. Maybe the game is really fucking like expressly anti-trans, and maybe I'll find out while I'm playing it, but it doesn't make sense. It's like a conflicting value for why they would have trans representation within the game. I know that a trans person wrote this article, by the way. I know it's not a cis person that wrote this article. Can't defend objectifying trans people as dystopian and then not have the game make a single comment on why it's bad? Oh, wait a minute. That's crazy. Hold on. I'm so confused by that take, considering the fact that an entire pathway on the game, out of the 33% of the game's acceptable pathways are literally about fucking destroying corporations and capitalism. That's such a weird fucking take. What the fuck are you saying? The fucking voice in your head is an anti-corporation terrorist. The whole point is about capitalist exploitation. This person wants the game to make it clear the characters are trans when you meet them, and in the same breath complain that they're hypersexualizing trans people others them. Those 2 points are contradictory. I know. I don't want to even get into that. I believe all of them are about that, even Corpo. I get that Cyberpunk's dark future is intended not as a goal, but as something for humanity to avoid. As Mike Pondsmith, creator of Cyberpunk tabletop game, put it, the Cyberpunk future is a warning, not an aspiration. There is real potential for a grim world like Cyberpunk 2077 offers to serve as lens through which our own world is critiqued. But the developers of CD Projekt Red failed to do anything with the trans option, and in identities they incorporated into the game to make them function in this way. And as V, you never have the option to say or do anything about it. The objectification of trans people is just background texture, nothing more. Okay, even if they had the fucking... I'm serious. Even if they had fixed the voice thing, I think that there would still be complaints. I'm sorry. It feels like people have had it in their heads for a while that this was going to be transphobic ever since the fucking one shitlord over at their marketing team said something transphobic, and then that's it. It's transphobic since then, and no matter what the fuck happens, you aren't listening, dude. Oh my god. Yeah, I really do think that like the fucking unironically sketchy and bad and transphobic social media shit literally fucking made it so that this game is transphobic no matter what happens. Like, you can say this about virtually every single part of the identity. The entire fucking game revolves around, from what I understand, and I haven't played it yet, so obviously I'm at a disadvantage here, but the entire fucking game revolves around corporate exploitation and capitalist exploitation. Not reducing it to individualized identities being bad means that you could write an article about how this game does not feature heavily why the sexualization of women is bad. This game does not feature heavily why the commodification of black bodies is bad, or the fetishization of black bodies is bad. Not every fucking cultural depiction is supposed to have every single unique identity expressed thoroughly about why it's bad to commoditize them, when the fucking point is commoditization and exploitation and fetishization, and why it's bad because of because of a dystopian hyper-capitalist future. These guys are fucking game developers, okay? They are not academics who are sitting around thinking about these sorts of concepts. It's like when people got mad at The Boys, okay? I forget what it was exactly. What the fuck was it? Holy shit. Libs do an overcorrection on a well-intentioned game. It does feel like it. I found CD Projekt as good as his corporation full of cis breeders could be. I think it's fine, and in the next 5 years, trans-repping games will be better. It's still better than any AAA game so far, considered GTA 5. I think that the game is a fine first step, but the sequel, better off on the stuff. Never accept the status quo. I think these articles are not representing the general trans perspective. You cannot designate it as not transphobic, bro. You literally have no stake in it. These criticisms can ultimately drive and change accommodations. Stop shilling. Wait, first of all, I think this part, I can do whatever the fuck I want, first of all, okay? Here, hello. Welcome to my fucking Twitch stream where I say and do whatever the fuck I want. You can agree with it. You can disagree with it. You can suck my entire cisgendered dick too, okay? While you're at it. Fuck you. That's one. Two. My personal point of view, as I've described numerous times over, while qualifying the position that I have as a point of privilege, is that there are definitely oversight issues that would be very easily fucking fixed by having a single trans person in the consultancy process, even if it's not like literally a full-time employee. That would have been like, yeah, fix the voice thing, okay? That's it. That's it. Everything else that I've seen thus far about the commodification of trans bodies and whatnot, again, with my fucking personal point of privilege, seems to be arguments that are being launched because it does not hyper specifically include trans people as a individual identity that is not being discussed from a social point of view. That's it. I'm not black either, but I said the exact same thing about like saying, well, this is fucking bullshit because the game says that you can be black, you can be a black character, but the game does not fucking have anything about like, I don't know, emancipation, or the game doesn't feature a plot point about how you're a black character and the fucking way that you deal with other black characters is any different than white characters. That's literally what the argument is in that circumstance. But there are black fetishized bodies. I'm not a black person, but I think that if someone made that criticism, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? What do you mean? Anyway. They are saying that if you are given the option to have trans characters and play as one, why are there no prominent trans characters for them to interact with? And if there are wait, first of all, she didn't say that. Wait, I'm not misgendering them, I hope. Carolyn. Okay. No. She did not fucking say that. She said, if there are trans characters in my 40-hour gameplay, I did not know if they were trans. That's entirely different than saying there are no trans characters. Okay? That implies that she doesn't personally know. They did not fucking code in people who were like, I'm trans. Very easily, half those fucking characters could be trans. If they rubbed it in your face all the time that these were trans characters and look at how trans they are, you would then say, it's fucking insane the way that they wrote this. It's very clear that some of these... They didn't have a single fucking trans person overlook the process, and now all the trans people are just fucking trans, and that's the entire point of their identity. You can't win. Like, that's crazy. Do we want to live in a future where trans people are like, oh, I'm trans, by the way, and that should designate my entire fucking life? And that is what my entire personality revolves around? Or are we living in a future where trans people are just coexisting in society and being fetishized just like every other fucking marginalized point of identity? Because I feel like that's the whole point. Dude, the game can have transphobia problems? Okay. 7 years ago, our fathers brought on for. Isn't the point of that in the future these groups are no longer marginalized and therefore an individual's belonging to said groups has no influence on their experiences? Where in the article does it say the game is transphobic? Azan? They're just saying that Cyberpunk could have handled representation better. Strawman Andy. Bro, are you fucking nuts? The purpose of this part of the article, at the very least, is to draw this exact same fucking response from my audience. It's not necessarily the argument that I'm criticizing. Now the argument is expanded into literally every single person in my audience that's like, no, this is a transphobic game. Fuck you. This is transphobic as fuck. Fuck you. This game is insanely transphobic. With other trans people in the community saying, well, I'm trans. It doesn't fucking bother me. I don't know why people are fucking getting super bent over it. While simultaneously a bunch of cis people and maybe some trans people as well saying, fuck you. This game is transphobic. Why are you shilling for it? This isn't a hill you want to die on? No, bitch, it is a fucking hill I want to die on, okay? Like, this is nuts. I think marginalized people are just tired of being told to be happy about representation when it's only surface level or trauma porn or villains. Yeah, but you're the main character. Like, what the fuck? You're right. If they didn't try to fucking accommodate, like, that's my whole point. They could have easily just fucking been like, made the game gender essentialist like every fucking other, literally every other video game with like 3 or 4 notable exceptions. And then on top of that, been transphobic as fuck. And I would be like, you're right. Like, this is transphobic as shit. But they tried to be fucking accommodating and failed because of a very simple fix. Otherwise, very simple fix, but clearly it requires probably more work. What? Of course I'm gonna still play the game, dude. What are you guys fucking nuts? Obviously I'm gonna still play the game. What are you, crazy? Even if the game was like literally transphobic, I'd probably still play it. Like, fuck you mean? Like what? I don't stop myself from literally consuming points of culture because racist or transphobic or homophobic shit happens in it. Like, I'm not a baby. I don't need to shield myself from these sorts of things. I can make up my mind about it as I go along. But like, I've literally never you all would too. I've never ever in a single fucking moment in my life ever been like, oh yeah, I guess I'm going to stop myself from consuming something because I will be critical of it. Like, consumption is endorsement. Okay, well then I endorse it. There you go. Like, yeah, if you have a very stupid worldview, then yes, my worldview corresponds to your stupidity. Okay, yeah. By the way, ultimately, this conversation that's being had will probably make it a better space for trans people overall, because trans representation in video games is a relatively new thing, but it's getting better. Okay, and it takes time, and it's a shitty process, just as it is with everything else. And there's going to be a lot of people that fucking react to it. There's going to be a lot of people that get fucking mad. But ultimately, it's still a good thing, step by step. And this is a good step in a AAA title that tried to be as accommodating as possible and still fell short in some ways. Okay? You are being a liberal, Azan. Yeah, I am, I guess. And it's probably because I'm privileged. If you think that I'm now transphobic because of my point of view, then you are welcome to that opinion. I don't care. I literally don't. But I understand that like a video game is not going to fix, like every video game is not going to fix racism, transphobia, and every other fucking point of marginalization on an intersectional perspective. I understand that most people are fucking complicated and very privileged and have privileged biases, and their art reflects that reality. Okay? I understand that I'm never going to read any of the essays that you're writing in the chat. That's definitely something that I understand. So keep it up, but I'm not reading it. Okay? Anyway, I know you think you're making a brilliant take that you keep fucking spamming with a Control-C, Control-V, but it's not getting read by me. Okay? I never said that this solves transphobia, by the way. Merely said it's a step in the right direction. Anyway, for elements like the inescapable dehumanization of trans people on imagery throughout the city to function as any kind of critique of transphobia, the game itself would need to create tension between those images and showing us humanized trans people navigating in that world, but it doesn't. The result is a game in which transphobic players, of which there will be many, can just laugh at us by using the creator character to generate models they consider worthy of mockery and derision, by gagging at the chromanticure ads they see everywhere, or perhaps by fetishizing the model while continuing to see trans people as objects of desire, but not as full human beings. Meanwhile, it's like, again, those people that hate trans people are still transphobic, whether they could make a trans person or not in the video game. Does not change that reality that is completely absent of like what the video game has tried to do. This is, I'm sorry, absolutely fucking beyond the pale. Like, it's I do not agree with this at all. Like, those people are transphobic. It's making it seem like having the trans option was worse off in this game. It literally feels like it would be better. It literally feels like this person is saying that it would be better if there was no trans people in this game at all. If that's another argument that you're using to pad the deck in your stack of arguments. We in the Latina community complain about when our representation is the buffoon or the idiot of the story, and that's our representation. I would think it's similar with most other communities. I don't think the game is doing that, but I haven't played it. Apparently, this is the right article you were looking for. It sucks that Cyberpunk's 2077 edgelord marketing works so well. What? Okay, we'll look at that in a little bit. Oh, Jesus, you're going to make me read 2 Polygon articles? Are you fucking kidding me? Jesus Christ. Okay. Feels like little things we got are because people have complained, not that CDPR cared to have them in the first place. That's why their support is so spotty and lacking in a broader context of the game. While it's inherently transphobic, the transphobia is unintentional and internalized and meta when it comes to the game and how it's made. So yeah, I'm going to play it. Not entirely their fault for being uneducated, and I agree with what you continue saying, that they could have at least had one. I'm trans, by the way. Their point is that the game supports transphobic people better than trans people. Okay. Every point of culture in that regard supports transphobic people more than trans people. Every single game, with the exception of like 3 or 4, are gender essentialist, which would imply that every single game that has come before this one supports transphobia more than trans people. This game, at least, has made attempts to accommodate to trans people in some way. So technically, with that fucking understanding, then yes, of course, every single game is more transphobic than it is trans positive. This game, on the other hand, at least is making some steps in the right direction. That was the argument that I was making from the jump. Okay? I think games need to be extremely sensitive touching on identity politics, or it will just come across as disingenuous. The game is definitely not a champion of trans rights, but aside from the voice thing, it seems fine. That's what I'm saying. I didn't. It's clear that the game is not trying to be a champion of trans rights. If it was, then they wouldn't have had such a fucking easily solvable error like accommodating for the gender essentialist point of view of your voice dictates what your fucking gender is. Literally, it's that easy. But that argument also comes with the implication that you understand that that is a minor part of the conversation because it's a minor thing to fucking solve. It's a minor solution, and therefore it is a minor part of the conversation, especially when you're otherwise trying to be accommodating. If they hadn't done any of this shit, whatsoever, I'd be like, yeah, this could be kind of transphobic. Anyway. As deeply unfortunate as this is, it is one facet of Cyberpunk 2077, a game that demands to be reckoned with in all of its messy, multifaceted entirety. V may be the central character of the game, but unlike Geralt in CD Projekt Red's previous game, The Witcher 3, she is not the star. Wait, did she write about how fucking Witcher 3 was transphobic as shit? It's gender essentialist as fuck. You have no choice. You keep fucking ladies. It's homophobic for that matter. Where Geralt, whatever, shut up. Geralt is not even. I mean, technically, it is, again, much like every other fucking game. Anyway, to its credit, Night City of Cyberpunk is not just an amalgamation of imagery lifted from other influential stories, but an original creation that incorporates many signifiers of the cyberpunk genre flavor. Lots of Japanese kanji and neon airships slowly drifting through the sky, while also feeling like a place we have seen before. Steam may issue forth from every service, but it is a shadowy aesthetic of Lure Blade Runner. The turbulent history isn't something you feel in the look and design of the city. It's something the narrative brings stilling the life to. Okay, I don't. Nothing in Cyberpunk 2077 brings you in closer contact with the knight's storied past than Johnny Silverhand. In the Cyberpunk tabletop RPG, one of the playable classes is Rocker Boy, a term for any musician or artist whose work stirs up public sentiment against evil corporations or other social ills. Interesting. To me, the Rocker Boys are the one thing that prevents Cyberpunk as a property from being wholly defined by cynicism and violence. There's something earnest and hopeful about the fact that the tabletop game wants players to see themselves not just as heavily armed solos and skilled netrunners, but also as artists whose creative output has the potential to change the world for the better. Johnny is played, of course, by Keanu Reeves. I can't imagine anyone else in the role. Johnny is an asshole with an ego as big as Night City, whose every word is uttered as if it's so important that the whole world should take heed. That chatter earlier today is looking hella stupid for saying that chat agrees with you, LMAO. Yeah, chat does not agree with me on everything. but that's a good thing. As long as it's thoughtful and well-crafted arguments that, again, come from like a point of a position of experience, that sort of thing, then it's entirely different than like some idiot being like, you're wrong, and I won't tell you why. Breaking news about Florida. We already covered that. Okay. Okay, the rest of it is just like kind of boring, I feel like. There's one thing in Cyberpunk 27 gets right about the genre from which it takes place. Many of the best Cyberpunk stories are high stories. Okay, I want to see like what else sucks about the game though. A little of that human touch. Like what else did she not like about it? Ludicrous to expect people to develop an entire game perfectly. If we blast them for trying to be exclusive, then what are normies supposed to do? This legitimizes what gamers believe. SGW is trying to start shit instead of rightful grievances about discrimination. Dude, when you do this, here, take fucking 4 more hours off, okay? Holy shit, you're still stun locked about something? I'm not stun locked. I like this conversation that we're having. I want to cover it, okay? You're just saying that you don't like it personally. And it's frustrating to me that you feel the need to voice your opinion in this matter. Just leave if you don't like it. It is an important discussion to have. It's one that every single fucking gamer will be talking about for the month to come. And I want to be a person who is as thoughtful as possible that is discussing it. I want to be a voice that is discussing this conversation with all of the fucking numerous sides that I may not have potentially thought about. Okay? Sorry, if you don't appreciate that, then you can, I don't know, come back and appreciate it later when I'm doing something that you will like. Let's take a look at all the Cyberpunk reviews now.
What is going on, Neon?
The problem that some trans people have with the ad in particular is when a cis person cosplayed that character from the ad and essentially took that fetishization that makes sense and is understandable from an in-universe way and brought it into the real world and made it real fetishization. CD Projekt Red and the cosplayer treated the gigantic visible fetish-like cock on a woman as some haha funny thing. Okay, that's fair. That's actually not good at all. I didn't even know that happened. Listen to your paying customers, please. Why did someone try to do that? Hope this game isn't just trans tokenism. All manner of like cultural depictions in the early stages of acceptance are going to be a little tokenized. Like, it's just a part of the growth process. Like, all right, let's watch this.
Nation, and over the last few days, I've been half tourist, half merc in the worst place to live in America, Night City. I've soaked in over 30 hours of Cyberpunk 2077, so today you guys are going to get my spoiler-free thoughts, impressions, and feedback after immersing myself in this world over the past 2.5-ish days. Now, I'm not going to lean too hard into this video because I am saving most of my thoughts for my full review, which will come out soon, but this should whet your appetite for that quite nicely. Before we get into it, review code has been provided by CDPR, so a big thank you to them for allowing me to give you guys my thoughts and impressions in the lead up to release. Now at this point, I'm not allowed to share my personal gameplay, so on screen you'll find the official gameplay trailer on a loop. But again, my full curated review will include more extended looks into Night City. For those of you wondering what I think of the game so far and if it's living up to my expectations, in many ways it's not only meeting them, it's exceeding them. I know there's been a lot of worries about if this game will live up to the monumental expectations it's been given. It's in my opinion that Cyberpunk will live up to the hype for most people. Now, Cyberpunk doesn't really bare its fully chromed teeth till about 10 hours in, sort of like The Witcher 3, but when it does, prepare for the world of Night City to tell a wide variety of encapsulating stories. Night City itself is really something you have to experience. The initial shock and awe of the city has still not worn off in the 30+ hours that I've played thus far. When I mean shock and awe of the city, I'm not referring to its quests, its people, or even doing anything. It's simply standing, staring, and wondering how a city like this exists. The layers, the granular detail, the world building, the people, the population density, it's all here on full display around every corner, in every nook and cranny, and Night City itself is nothing short of a work of art. It's definitely in the top 2 things for me so far in Cyberpunk 2077. Now within Night City is a dizzying array of content and quests.
Oh yeah, fuck
Quests
yeah.
are separated into main and side quests with a sprinkling of various different alternative activities like gigs and scanner hustles, which are effectively Witcher 3's random encounters or bandit camps with a little bit more context. At the beginning you'll be doing some pretty trivial tasks, mostly involving scavengers and mostly around Watson, but just like in The Witcher 3, after the training wheels fall off, Cyberpunk 2077 really hits its stride and begins offering you some more compelling content. Think of Watson as Night City's White Orchard, but with much more to do. Now I will say that the quest UI, the logs, and the interface needs work. Absolutely everything is red, and with that, everything blends in. Some color coding on the map itself as well as in the logs would go a really long way to help readability. Don't get me wrong, it's clean, but it can be more functional in my opinion. As amazing as Night City is from a visual and city design standpoint, it would be nothing without its cast of diverse characters. Very early into Cyberpunk 2077, I found what is thus far its strongest aspect, neck and neck with the city itself, the first-person interactive dialogue segments. With this, you can freely look around as you're engaged in conversations with NPCs and main story characters, and you never lose this perspective going from cutscene to cutscene fluidly. Combine this with the exceptional nuanced body language of characters, and for the most part their eyes, and I experience a connection to these characters I've yet to experience in a video game. Throw in well-written dialogue and some truly jarring and disturbing quests, and you'll start to realize how strong a decision this was for CDPR. Now in normal conversation, you break eye contact, you look around if you get distracted, and your head is not fixed, and CDPR has captured that with this scene system. You'll also find contextual clues and things you might have missed otherwise this way. There was a segment where I was giving glowing remarks to an NPC's girlfriend, and as I turned to my left to see his reaction, he had this underlying look of approval and gratitude waiting under the surface of his boisterous machismo exterior. Another time an NPC looked into the back to catch the latest TV story off screen. I moved my head to follow him to a particularly interesting news segment. This is a system that gives each interaction some added authenticity to it. Another strength which goes hand in hand with CDPR's first-person scene system are the quests. The main quest is compelling right out of the gate, but side content will start off more slowly as you acclimatize to the controls, navigating the city, and your role as a merc. When they do start to pick up, however, they are in line with some of the best from The Witcher. One of the lengthier side quests I did was tied to the NCPD and Braindance, and is something that will stick with me for a while. It took me through a range of emotions while taking moments and breathers for connection with the people involved. That's really what seems to be at the core of Cyberpunk 2077, making human connections in a barbaric world, filled with everything and anything to make you anything but human. The soul of Night City is in its quests and its characters. Now let's talk about combat next. There's been some contention on whether or not the combat in Cyberpunk 2077 is weak or not. I'm someone who plays almost exclusively multiplayer shooters, and I have to say from that standpoint, the gunplay is quite good. Personally, I got the most enjoyment out of the tech weaponry, which not only had the most satisfying sound design, but could also penetrate cover, letting me run and gun or sit back from a distance and know where my enemies were hiding.
Okay, I don't know what this guy's deal is. Is he legit? Like, because it sounds really good.
Being said, in a game where there is so much mastery on display, the gunplay can appear to be objectively worse, just purely based on the fact that it's just good. For me personally, I really enjoyed the gunplay. Skills, perks, and cyberware also really add this additional layer of customizability, and the fluid class system really lets you dabble into everything. Just before I miss it, customization in the character creator is not the most expansive ever, and was a bit underwhelming. There are some cool options there, it just didn't feel like there was a ton. In the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter since you rarely see your character, and you'll likely be wearing weirdly mismatched equipment anyways, since there's such a wide variety of styles and armors. Now initially via a tutorial, I thought I would actually really enjoy the melee in Cyberpunk, but so far it is a weak spot. Dodging is unintuitively tied to double tapping either the A or D keys, and although you can rebind it, it's still just a weaker element. To make things worse, it wasn't overly noticeable when you're landing hits or when you were getting hit, which muddies the readability of an already hard to pull off FPP hand-to-hand combat. Swordplay is a bit better, but again my go-to ended up being firearms, and oddly enough stealth, which I found very exciting in Cyberpunk, just based on how robust the infiltration system is. It's similar to Deus Ex, but with more things to manipulate in your environment and the freedom of an open world. Now, I'm also happy to announce driving is implemented well. I'd liken it to a slightly more weighty GTA with less outlandish physics and a more muted damage system. Different makes and models will drive differently, and you will find your favorites, which in my case were Thornton and Archer vehicles. Some of the earlier vehicles are a tad sensitive, but this is to separate the economy vehicles from some of the other types like the weightier luxury vehicles, the zippy sports cars, or the all-rounder hypercars. I stole a Herrera car at one point, which I absolutely loved. Also, I found myself driving mostly in third person, firstly to ogle at Night City as I was driving, and second because Night City has so many turns and windy roads that it was just easier. Going back to the Quest UI with all the layers to Night City, the waypoints and GPS can be very frustrating at times. Now, the radio stations and music in general spans a wide variety of genres and tastes, with my favorite being the more experimental hallucinatory rhythms and some of the foreign flair. Those are my initial thoughts so far.
You can steal cars after. You can steal cars only after you like get the perk for it.
Full-blown in-depth review soon, and for more Cyberpunk, join Neon Nation by subscribing to the Neon Arcade.
How long have we waited? 8 years? 2012 was, I believe, when they first announced the game. It's surreal that the game's finally here, that I've played it, that I've rolled credits on it. And let me tell you, the substance of the game blew me away and lived up to my hype. I am in love with what I experienced with this title, and as a huge fan of the cyberpunk genre and CD Projekt Red's work and the marriage of the two, this has lived up to be sort of a game of my dreams as a cyberpunk fanatic. On the other hand, quick disclaimer, for this December 7th review embargo period, I am not allowed to show you my own gameplay footage. I can only use footage provided by CD Projekt Red, and it's not particularly super useful footage. It's B-roll that's cinematically shot but isn't really fully representative of actual gameplay. I'm allowed to
Young Ye is literally a chud who supports pretty much every gamer outrage. Okay. Wait, someone said Young Ye is actually based for a gamer? Wait, what the fuck is going on, dude? Young Ye is the GOAT? Half the chat's like he's a freak who loves Gamergate, and the other half the chat is saying he's fucking based.
show you my own.
Pick one, motherfuckers. What is he? Well, I don't know. But hey, here's what I don't care about. What his fucking political point of view is. Okay? You want to know why? I don't give a fuck about what his political point of view is. Because I'm trying to find out if he liked the game or not. Okay? My political identity or my worldview in that regard does not fucking matter in this circumstance. Like, Jesus Christ.
Gameplay on.
If he turns around and he's like, I love that it's like so transphobic, then that's entirely different. If I'll be like, all right, fuck this. And also, it will probably mean that the game is definitely a little bit more transphobic than I thought it was. Okay? But otherwise, if he's talking about the fucking mechanics of the game, I'm not like, wait a minute. Did this person support Black Lives Matter or not?
December 9th, which is the day the game comes out in certain regions. And this really doesn't sit well with me. This feels dishonest, as it feels like CD Projekt Red is trying to hide some of the buggy elements of the game that I would like to show you guys because I feel like it's important for you to know, but I'm not allowed to until the day that the game launches in certain regions. I can talk about it, just not show you, and just in general, there's not going to be a lot of gameplay footage in this video because of these restrictions. And look, I didn't expect this game to be perfect. I knew there were going to be some bugs, but I do feel as though the bugs that I found were constant and persistent and at times disruptive enough where it is worth highlighting and warning people about. Now, CD Projekt Red did release a mid-review patch that improved on certain aspects, and they did tell me that this was a partial version of the Day Zero patch that the public is going to get, but at the same time, even after the patch, some of the issues that I experienced persisted. I'm not sure how big of a difference the final version of the patch will make. We'll find out. We'll see, I suppose. And I'll talk about the technical issues later in the video. Just know that on December 9th, I will be launching a part 2 to this review, showing my own gameplay footage to spotlight both the things that I really loved about this game and the technical issues that I encountered. But with that warning out of the way, let's talk about the experience itself, which, you know, it really did take my breath away in many regards. Let's start with story. This is the element that I want to talk least about for obvious reasons. What I will say is that I was truly blown away by the storytelling and writing in this game. One of the key elements of the Cyberpunk tabletop RPG that the game's based off of is the idea that you're not out there as a cyberpunk or edge runner to save the world. You're out there to save yourself, to save your soul, or maybe the soul of others. This is something that CD Projekt Red clearly took to heart because Cyberpunk 2077 captures that
like Joe Biden
very well with its core narrative. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of epic moments and set pieces with really awesome heist, chase, and action sequences, but at its core, this feels like a very deeply personal story that asks questions about what it means to be alive, what it means to be human, what it means to be free in a dark future where technology allows the top 1% to play God among other conundrums. You know, in the marketing materials, we have seen a lot of the loud moments of Cyberpunk, but they've actually shown very little of the quieter, contemplative, more personal moments, and those moments are here aplenty, which I was really pleased about. One of the things that I appreciate most about this game from a narrative standpoint is that they know how to take their time with
No, bro, I feel like he's gonna be like, one of the things I love is the transphobia, and then I'm just gonna have to turn off the video. Like,
moments and scenes. There are long stretches of time where you won't fire a single bullet, you're just talking to people, making choices, picking dialogue, and it's all incredibly well executed. And even within dialogue, there are plenty of moments where characters will just kind of contemplate and sit silently before saying their next thing, and CD Projekt Red just really knows how to add dramatic effect, and the conversations as a result feel more natural, more human, more real. The game can often feel like this first-person interactive movie, one with incredible attention to detail. The narrative in this game just in general was thought-provoking, asking a lot of interesting philosophical questions associated with the cyberpunk genre with, I thought, great nuance, with decision-making that tends to lie in some kind of gray area. No choice has a correct answer. It's more about actions and consequences and what your view of the world is and what you want out of it as V, the protagonist of this game. And depending on the choices you make, the relationships you build through side quests, you do get to unlock multiple endings. And there are some that are more hopeful. There are others that are darker and more questionable. But it's all really fantastic, really complex, really well weaved together. And beyond the main quest, CD Projekt Red is known for their ability to create truly compelling side quests and smaller scale stories, and 2077 is no different in that regard. I mean, some of the side activities you partake in will be simple mercenary work, you know, steal something, kill someone, find some info. But there are some side quests that really deliver some really effective personal stories with lengthy narrative threads. And then there are also side quests that are really goofy and really funny, making some references that many of you will recognize. Or
I heard this as well, that like it is very funny. Like it's a funny game. From other friends that I've talked to that have reviewed the game.
Showing cameos that I won't spoil that just had me in stitches. And I did find a decent variety of activities too, with story-driven main and side quests never feeling generic. Everything just feels really handcrafted. While there is some repetition in the gameplay loop, as with any game, it's a matter of how does a game find a way to keep it fresh, and Cyberpunk does so through, you know, compelling new narrative threads, compelling stories, and also through the player progression that kind of makes you feel more powerful and develops the style of play over time. I also really love the dynamic between the main character V and his companion Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves. I'm going to tell you right now, Johnny Silverhand, he is, I would say, the other side to V's coin in this game. He's not, I wouldn't even say a supporting character. I'd go as far as calling him a second protagonist. The two are forced together by, shall we say, unfortunate circumstances, but there's a bond there that develops over time, over the course of the campaign, and it's really compelling, and I really grew fond of Johnny Silverhand, who comes off as this hardened kind of jerk and dickwad, to be honest, but you know, those walls, those barriers start breaking down and you get to know him more. You get to understand why he's the way he is, and it's simply phenomenal. Also, if you're a fan of the Cyberpunk lore from the tabletop RPG, the amount of fan service here, the good kind, is really unbelievable. Just so many familiar faces, plenty of callbacks to the 2020s era and even before that, exploration of past events that contextualize current events, and inversely, 2077's story makes you look at past events in the Cyberpunk lore under a different light. I really don't want to say much more than that. The blinder you go into this game, the better you'll be off. I think a lot of people will be very pleased. Even if you're not familiar with the Cyberpunk lore, this tells a very effective cyberpunk story that deals with a lot of personal issues, and yeah,
Who the fuck is familiar with the cyberpunk lore anyway? I mean, I'm sure you guys are, but I'm not. I don't know anything about it.
I loved the main campaign. Many of you will surely wonder how long this game is. It took me about 35 hours to beat my first playthrough, though keep in mind that I did focus a lot on the main quest to get this review done on time. After you beat the game, you can go back and do side quests, so, you know, that's what I decided to do, though I did do a decent amount of side quests along the way as well. I'd say about 25 hours of my playthrough was dedicated to main quests, and then 10 hours was for side quests. But by the time I was done with the campaign and went back to the open world, I had plenty of side quests that I have still left to do. I still have to go back to the game and finish more side quests. I don't know exactly how long the game would be if you complete everything. I think it'll generally take shorter to complete all of Cyberpunk's activities compared to Witcher 3. I spoke to another reviewer, SkillUp, who actually cleared more side quests than I did, and he suspected completing all of the game's main quests and major side quests, it would take roughly 55 to 60 hours, given that he has completed most of the major side quests in his quest log, though I do want to personally spend more time doing side quests before I save for sure. I do hope that in part 2 of my review on December 9th,
dude, that I've already fucking addressed these arguments. 60 hours, not even 100 hours. Like, dude, shut up. The game is supposed to be replayable. That's one. Number two, only 60 hours, you spoiled fucks. I would rather have 60 solid hours than 700 hours that you get with AC Valhalla. Shut up, you fucking pigs. Just shut up and eat your fucking slop, you stupid fucking pigs. That's my take. I'm sick and tired of gamers that fucking shit on everything. AC Valhalla, 110 hours in, there's still plenty of game to play. Okay? Go ahead, play that game.
I'll be able to provide maybe a more accurate assessment of my own, but the campaign is shorter than Witcher 3's. CD Projekt Red has been open about that in the past, but it's a really tight campaign with really great narrative beats, and I was satisfied with that experience, and I can't wait to dive back and just do more stuff. There's still plenty of narrative threads that I have not touched, and plenty of quests that I kind of stopped halfway, and these side quests feel very handcrafted. They feel as cinematic as the main quest. It feels like a lot of love and care was put into the side quest as much as the main quest. All of the side quests, the major side quests, have felt substantial to me. There's also another factor to consider. The game does feel very replayable. I am already kind of interested in starting a new game, making different decisions with a different life path, and seeing how that affects how certain quests play out, or what new dialogue options open up and how that affects certain quests, and which endings, additional endings, I can unlock. The narrative is bolstered by the incredible presentation of this title. I know there are people out there who would have preferred to see, you know, some kind of third-person perspective for this game, but after playing through this game in its entirety, the campaign at least, I didn't find myself missing a third-person perspective at all. In fact, I would say Cyberpunk 2077 makes some of the most effective use of a first-person perspective that I've ever seen in a video game from a presentation standpoint. There are no real cutscenes in this game because everything plays out seamlessly right in front of your eyes. A lot of cinematic moments happen right in front of your eyes without any camera transition and cuts. It's all kind of one shot almost. And the amount of animation work that is done is so extensive with so many nuanced details, like just seeing how characters do basic actions like sitting down on a chair instead of just a stock sit down animation. They'll kind of
I literally just feel like chat has already made up their minds. Originally, you guys were all shitting on the trans writer for saying like, oh, you know, she made up her mind on the transphobia, but you're doing the same thing.